You're watching Fugitive Red-Eye, and welcome to another review. Today I'll be reviewing the Shaft TV series. That's right, Shaft had a TV series. It wasn't anywhere near as successful as the movies, and Richard Roundtree himself actually didn't like it. He kinda disavows it, but I actually don't agree with that, and I'm gonna get into why in this video. So some background on the Shaft TV series. The Shaft TV series was a set of 7 TV movies. That's right, each episode was a 90-minute made-for-TV movie. So essentially, it's 7 more Shaft movies in addition to the 5 theatrical movies. They were made from 1973 through 1974, so as you can imagine, they all star Richard Roundtree and focus on the original Shaft, because they were all made before the second Shaft and third Shaft were introduced. Obviously, with Richard Roundtree being my favorite of the Shafts, that's no problem. The show itself was part of a series called the New CBS Tuesday Night Movies, and it ran every third week. It would alternate between a couple of other series. Another one that we ran was called Hawkins, which I guess it was kind of in conflict with, because they were both police shows. With the Shaft TV series, they did have to tone it down quite a bit because it was made for TV. For instance, in the movies, Shaft was very hostile towards the police and didn't like them, whereas in the show, he's much more willing to work with them and has a good relationship with a detective named Al Rossi, who is very loosely based on Detective Vic Andrassi from the movies. They're very different characters, and I think Al Rossi is a better character, and I like the chemistry that him and Shaft have together, so I actually think it works in the favor of the show, in my opinion. The show only got the 1 season, and it was released on DVD by Warner Archive Collection, so it's on DVD-R, and that's how I own it, because it's through Warner's Burn-on-Demand service. Each episode focuses on a different case that Shaft is investigating: murder cases, kidnappings, things like that. And like I said, each episode is its own little Shaft movie, just severely toned down. A lot less language as well. They don't really show any blood in the show either. Like, people will get shot with a fucking sniper rifle and there won't be any blood whatsoever. And I don't know if that's because of it being toned down for TV or if it's because of budget. I assume it might be a little of this and a little of that, because it obviously had a significantly lower budget than the theatrical films did. But overall, if you like Shaft, I don't see why you wouldn't like this show. It's more of the character being a badass and solving cases. Yes, there's some differences, and it definitely is toned down, but I like some of the chemistry he has with Detective Rossi. I like some of the individual characters introduced, and the cases are interesting enough to keep it going. Don't go into it expecting it to be of the same quality as the theatrical films, because it's not, but it's a fun little set of side adventures to get more Shaft. And obviously they were released after Shaft in Africa, but before Shaft 4. So they're a fun little side story, and you can't go wrong with more Shaft. I do plan on reading the Shaft novels at some point, too, to see how those turn out. The Shaft novels are actually different than the movies in a way. Shaft and Shaft's Big Score are both in the novels, but there's more novels than there are movies, and the novels themselves have different novels than movies. For instance, Shaft in Africa was not a novel. It was completely made up for the movies, whereas something like Shaft Among the Jews, which was the second novel, was not adapted into a movie, and instead they opted to go for the third book, Shaft's Big Score, to be the second movie. And if you know about me, Shaft's Big Score is my favorite of the movies. But yeah. If you like Shaft, I still recommend checking it out. Richard Roundtree himself doesn't particularly care for it, but I don't see why. I think they're fun little side adventures, and although they're toned down, they still have very much of the spirit of Shaft, even if they did slightly alter the character's personality. I by no means would think of them as canon, because again, Victor Andrassi was replaced by Al Rossi, and I think they're basically supposed to be kind of the same character, but Al Rossi is a lot nicer, much more sympathetic to Shaft, and the two get along a lot more rather than being at odds like they were in the movies with Victor Andrassi. That's all I really have to say about Shaft, the TV series. It's a fun ride, and I definitely recommend checking it out. This has been Fugitive Red-Eye. Have a good one.
I'm gonna fucking die here, Jack!